Hello and welcome to the Modern Adventurer podcast. Coming up.
And I'm paddling, thinking nothing of it. And it's not a nice night. It's drizzly, it's grey, it's those perfect predator conditions, so we say. And I'm paddling and basically an orca came up behind me. And I actually thought it was a fishing boat that I just hadn't heard come up behind me because, you can't describe just how big these things are in the water and just how tall that fin is standing out of the water, so proud. And it actually surprised me so much I fell off my board, and I'm in the water thinking, do I panic and get out, or do I just lie there and just think, I'm in its world, there's nothing, if it wants me, there's nothing I can do about it.
My next guest is an adventurer and teacher and is fresh off the board after 141 days paddleboarding around Great Britain. He embraced the British weather and had some of the most incredible experiences on his trip, encountering close-up moments with orcas where he was thrown off his board and felt like he was being hunted by the orca whales in Scotland. On the podcast today, we talk about some of his incredible experiences and the why and why he did this incredible trip. So I'm delighted to introduce Brendon Prince to the podcast.
John, absolutely awesome to speak to you, buddy. Really looking forward to a chat. So awesome day.
Well, it is amazing to have you on. You're fresh off the paddleboard. Only, a couple of weeks ago, you were around the UK paddleboarding. How does it feel to be off?
It's a funny feeling, isn't it? Because it's something you dream about ending because that's part of it. But then when it happens, I still feel like I'm cloud nine. I still feel, being away for 4.5 months, 141 days, you lose perspective of a lot of things, and gaining those things back gradually each day is just refreshing. It's cool.
Well, for people who don't know you, probably the best place to start before we jump into this incredible expedition that you did. Why don't you tell the audience sort of about you and how you got into paddleboarding and this sort of massive adventure? How did it all start?
Well, I suppose, I started teaching water sports when I was 16 and went on lots of different expeditions. Back then it was more about mountaineering than water as expeditions. But it's always been in there. And then you have children, and that sort of changes perspective. And I stopped climbing and did more and more and more stuff on the water. And then I was given a paddleboard in 2007 as a thing to try. And, lots of people pointed and laughed when they saw me because it was like, what's that guy doing standing on a board and there's no waves? But I loved it. And I've been paddling ever since. And it's always been something that I thought, I could use this as a tool to have awesome people like yourself listen to why, what my why is for doing it. So I thought, well, it's a guy called Jordan Wiley tried to do it last year, top guy, good friend of mine, and for lots of different reasons didn't achieve. And I thought, well, now or never, really, let's give it a go. It's going to be a slog. It's one of those endurance events where it's not just about what I do, but it's more about what I do in the weather. It's all about the weather doing something like this. And 141 days later, set a load of world records and got it done.
Wow. Yeah, we had Jordan on a couple of months back who, as I say, so unlucky with his attempt. But as he said, he said your name and said that you were doing this incredible trip. And, such, as I say, from the beginning, starting in Torquay, what was the sort of big reasoning behind it?
It's funny, isn't it? Because that's the key question that people ask, and I've got a very big reason for it. And I've delved into my own mind to think, well, actually, could I have done this without that reason? And I don't think I probably could have done. I think you have to have a very strong motivation to do this. Getting up at 4 a.m. when it's freezing cold in Scotland to put icy, even in the summer, icy stuff on that's wet. You've got to have a good motivation then to paddle for 16 hours. So my motivation comes from all about prevention of drowning and water safety. We live on an island, Great Britain, fantastic island, huge coastline, huge amount of inland waterways, but we unfortunately don't have the knowledge to support our geography, and deaths through drowning and accidents through drowning, rescues through drowning are just off the scale. And bigger things have got to be done to keep everything in line to try and do something about this. And having taught water safety in schools and as an instructor as well for 3 decades, I've tried every avenue. And it seems that the 21st century way of teaching children water safety is to create an app. It's perfect sense. I mean, let's get, when they're on their phones playing a game, but within that game, it's all about water safety. So these things cost a lot of money. So I thought, well, what crazy thing can I do to sort of raise this money and raise awareness, and come in and paddle and board around Britain seemed the obvious choice, seeing as I was a paddleboarder. I've got the experience, I've got the knowledge of the water, and to put it, unlike Jordan, I mean, hat off to Jordan Wiley, because he's not a paddleboarder and he doesn't have, he's not a waterman, and he took the challenge on, which is just incredible. I mean, I took the challenge on and I got the skills, and it was still a massive challenge. So that was my motivation for those 8 million paddle strokes.
God, wow. And I mean, it is incredible that, as you're saying, the why is just so important in these events. To do, as you say, to get up at 4 a.m. and put on an icy wetsuit in the middle of Scotland. I mean, we had Sean Conway on, who swam around Great Britain, and he was the same. He was just like, God, the motivation sometimes when you are just so cold and you put on this icy wetsuit. And it's amazing that you had that huge why sort of driving you throughout. And so for an expedition like this, the sort of planning that goes into it, because you must have had quite a decent support team around you, helping you throughout.
Yeah, I'm very proud of our planning. Very proud because we can sit back now and look at it and nothing went wrong, which I'm sure was a little bit of luck in there, but a lot to do with planning. So my mission was to not do it with any support on the water. The reason for that is to prove that with the right skills, the right equipment, the right knowledge, you can actually undertake this sort of venture. But I needed obviously a crew on land, so that when I came in, and that half the problem, half the difficulty of doing what I did was the fact that I was coming in every night. So you've got to smash out through waves, you've got to come back in through waves every night to get in. And they're the gnarliest bits. So I needed a crew often to guide me, because I'd be surfing into beaches with massive waves on a beach I've never surfed in before. I don't know if there's hidden rocks or dangers. So they would watch for those and guide me and signal for those sort of things. So, and also prepare my food and a bed to sleep in a van, so land crew. So I had Will and Harry. Will's a professional video photographer, so he was documenting what we were doing. And Harry's just an all-round super legend, can turn his hand to anything and be a problem solver. So between the two of them, there was always eyes on the land. And especially, certain parts of England, certain parts of Wales, and a lot of Scotland, there's nothing else. So, and this was super important. Some people and I've spoke to some adventurers, unfortunately, sadly, that have an opinion that if anything goes wrong, well, we've got the RLLI or the Coast Guard to come and save us. I don't view it like that at all. I think it's an ultimate failure if you've had to resort to that type of rescue, because if with the right planning, even the unexpected you can deal with. And I had lots of unexpected, but through skill and knowledge, you just deal with it to still be safe. And that was what I was trying to prove within the activity. So, it's a team effort. Really is a team effort. And Will, Harry, and Zoe and Lucy back at base in Torquay were all part of that team. And of course, I've got to mention, as part of that team, my wife and children, who were a big part of that team.
Yeah, because you left your wife and kids behind to support you from Torquay. I imagine it's probably the reason why you started from there is probably because you're from Torquay.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Torquay's my home. Yeah, Torquay's my home. I can see from the window now exactly where I started and where I finished.
Oh wow, that must be so nice.
Yeah, that was part of it really. And I love Torquay. Torquay being a town within Torquay. I wanted to advertise where I live and the beauty of where I live. And and put that on it as well to support the local businesses, the water business related businesses in Torquay. And indeed, as I traveled around, having as much interaction with stand-up paddleboard schools and water people was a massive part of the adventure.
And so you set off from Torquay or Torquay back in April, and the idea was 90 days, was it? And I remember you saying that was like if everything went perfect, like the wind, the waves, like the weather, everything. But it took a little longer. So what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the plan was to leave Torquay, turn right, and just keep turning right until I came back into Torquay. Really simple concept. And my ideal of 90 days was based on the last 5 years, really, of weather. We haven't had a year's weather like anything else for a long time. I've got connections with different weather organizations, and they've said, the recordings of wind on our coast have just been ridiculous. And what the most important thing about that is wind coming from the same direction for 2 weeks. It's almost unheard of, without it changing. And the issue is if you've got wind coming in your face for 2 weeks, it's ridiculous. It's crazy. And that slows you up. On a good day, I did 78 kilometers. When I was training back here, I could do 100 kilometers in a day with the right conditions. And yet I had 20 days where I didn't go on the water at all because the weather was too bad. And I had another sort of 30 days where I did less than 5K in a day because the weather was so bad. But I might have been paddling for 16 hours to do that 5K. It's just so demoralizing. So yeah, I had the weather massively against me in places. Thankfully then, as we got around John O'Groats and down the East Coast, it was more favourable to make a bit of ground up. But yeah, we completed in 41 days. So that's a good chunk over. But hey, that's just the way it is sometimes. You just got to go with it, never against it.
Yeah, I suppose for people listening and who don't know much about paddleboarding, I mean, I did a short expedition in April, and you're going at quite a slow pace, and when the wind's in your face, it's almost like a sail dragging you back.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So on a good day, I'd be doing 8 kilometers an hour. So you can start to see, if you paddle for 10 hours, how much distance you can get. Fantastic. On a bad day, I'd be doing maybe 1.5 kilometers an hour. So in 10 hours of paddling, you've only gone as far as you can see. It really is demoralizing and also brutal on the body because it takes 10 times the amount of energy to go quarter of the distance.
Yeah, and as you say, demoralizing in your mind. You know that you've gone just absolutely nowhere, and you put in all this effort.
Yeah, I mean, there were some places around the coast where we've got big concrete cedar fences or promenades. And because the wind was so strong, you're trying to hug the coast because you're trying to get some shelter. And often I'd be paddling. And there was one particular time on the northwest coast where I was paddling all day. And basically the guy that walked past me, because he was much faster than me walking on the promenade in the morning with his dog, went walking again in the evening with his dog, and I was still in that stretch of water. It would have been so much easier to get out and walk the beach than it was to paddle, but that was part of the challenge.
That's what makes it all fun. God. And so I suppose when you had the sort of westerly winds, probably the start was the most brutal.
Yeah, well, the Cornish coast, Cornwall and Devon, a bit like the northwest coast of Scotland, is different from the rest of our coastline because they always have Atlantic swell coming in. So no matter what all the local national stuff is doing, if there's a big storm or winds out in the Atlantic Americas, it comes this way eventually. So when we were in Devon and Cornwall, we had all the local winds and what that creates and the swell that creates. But then you've also got this 5 meter swell coming in from the Atlantic constantly. And that bashing, smashing the cliffs on top of all the other weather just means sometimes it's just brutally dangerous and you just can't get anywhere. And yeah, that's what we found. And so to start off, you know, in the first 30 days, half the time was sat watching rather than paddling because the weather was just too brutal.
Wow. God, what, just enormous waves, wind, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, all of that. And, you know, there was a time, I spent 5 days waiting in Bude, and the day I actually paddled out is a 10-foot swell, 10-foot waves coming in there. So for most people, they were like, well, you're not going out today. And I said, well, actually, once I'm out there, it's not too bad. I just need to get out there. And on a 14-foot board, that's never easy. So, you know, to get out there, and I managed 10K that day. But of course, if you got out there, you got to come back in. And that can be the really sketchy part of, you know, surfing massive waves on a 14-foot board, trying to protect yourself, but also the board. Because if I fold that board, if I damage that board, I've got to still do it on that board. So, you know, you've got to be overly cautious to make sure I don't snap it in half, basically.
All right. So you didn't even have a spare one going just in case?
No, because a part of the record attempt, you have to do it on one board. So, you know, it's about fixing it. It's about sorting it out if you smash it up. But that then means you've got a delay. So it was all about just looking after that board because it's a priority. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. And so throughout that trip, what were some of the amazing moments from it?
Well, you got some of the, you know, amazing motion for me personally. So the days when you do get that 50K in the morning, and you're just flying, you know, places like the Mainland Straits in Wales, where you're doing 35 kilometers an hour, places in Scotland where you're doing, I mean, our fastest recorded speed was 39 kilometers an hour. You know, you're flying along. So they're exhilarating and amazing. Some of the beaches surfing in, you know, fantastic. But really, other than the amazing geography that we've got, it's the wildlife that create those magic moments. And I mean, I saw everything. You know, hundreds of dolphins at one time, 20,000 seals at one time, you know, in different places. Whales, I saw pilot whales, minke whales, and of course, killer whales. I saw porthbeedle, shark. I saw massive stags, you know, on the beaches in Scotland, you know, watching sea otters play as you paddle past them. You know, all these magic moments create a big smile on your face for the next 10 hours of paddling, because you're just thinking about, wow, I've just seen that, you know, as I come around a corner. So those moments really are the magic ones.
God, how close were you to the orcas or the killer whales?
Yeah, so this is just past Cape Wrath, and it was about 7 o'clock at night. So in Scotland, it doesn't get light at that time of the year till midnight. It doesn't get dark until midnight. But it goes that sort of duskish from about 7, 8 o'clock. And I'm paddling, thinking nothing of it. And it's not a nice night. It's drizzly, it's grey. Those perfect predator conditions, so we say. And I'm paddling, and basically an orca came up behind me. And I actually thought it was a fishing boat that I just hadn't heard come up behind me, because, and you can't describe just how big these things are in the water, and just how tall that fin is standing out of the water, so proud. And it actually surprised me so much I fell off my board, and I'm in the water thinking, do I panic and get out, or do I just lie there and just think, you know, I'm in its world, there's nothing, if it wants me, there's nothing I can do about it. And I just let it cruise past the other side of my board. And it was like a submarine going by. It was that big. And then as I'm climbing back on my board, because I think I'm all good and safe and it's cruised off, another one just came up, brushed past my feet. And, you know, that moment of vulnerability can never be matched on anything I've ever done in any, you know, standing on top of a mountain or wherever it might be. I've never felt that sort of minuscule, that redundant, that vulnerable ever. And then I had 2 more encounters with them that evening, where other mum and babies came to check me out, and then another encounter where they just felt like they were hunting me rather than just coming to have a look. And at that point I thought, do you know what, it was about 10 o'clock at night, I'm getting off the water now, because it's just getting a bit too familiar. So yeah, that was my orca experience. Amazing creatures, you know, they've never harmed anyone in the wild, but it doesn't help your mind from just going crazy because they're so big. They're so big. And if they got you mistaken as a seal and chomped you up, no one would ever know, because there'd be nothing left of you, because it would be one mouthful for these guys.
God, wow. That just sounds absolutely incredible. I'm almost speechless.
It was a crazy experience, and one they'll always have. And then people say to me, "Oh, that's amazing! I want to go up to Scotland and see orcas." And best of luck to them. But I would quite happily never see one again on the water, because, as I say, the vulnerability of it is just phenomenal to understand.
Yeah,
it is. And I encountered other whales when I was out there, and the same feeling wasn't there. You felt they were beautiful things, and you were really watching them. Whereas the killer whales, it's that vulnerability that a killer whale offers when it's up close and personal.
I mean, the adrenaline pumping through you at that time. I mean,
you can almost feel your heart through your chest. It is. Yeah, it is pumping.
I mean, I must have watched enough documentaries on watching them hunt seals and all sorts. So to actually feel like you were being hunted must have been quite the experience.
Well, the last ones that I encountered, I actually saw a big male ahead of me, 200-300 meters, because you suddenly see the fin come out. And that in itself is just like, takes your breath away. And then it's coming towards you, and you think, yeah, it's all good. He's just coming to check me out, just coming to see. And it's getting closer and closer. And about 50 meters from me, I thought, well, I'm not going to keep heading at it. I'm just going to turn off, get a bit closer to land. And as I attempted to turn, two came in from either side behind me. And you just think, that is total predator. If I was a seal, that would be the end of me now. And it was at that point that I thought, I'm not comfortable anymore in this environment. I need to jump off the water. So within about 20 minutes, I found an exit point and got off.
Because in the wild, they sometimes with their prey, they just play with them in terms of like, they don't sometimes hunt just for the sake of killing. They like almost hunting and playing with them, teasing them to the point of like, I don't know. It's like they're I don't know what it is, what they call it in the wild, the sort of technical term, but they're just, I think they sort of do it with great whites as well. They hunt them, and everyone just sort of, as you say, because probably SeaWorld, they sort of feel them as these lovable creatures, but in the wild they are terrifying.
The marine life, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I mean, up in Scotland, there's lots of people and all about Coach Watch, seeing where they are, and they tell you when they're about and that sort of thing. And only about like a week earlier, I was watching some video footage of the seals near John O'Groats, the killer whales near John O'Groats, close enough that the people could see it happening, but they were literally, as you say, brutally playing with seals and throwing them around. And I had this, and blood in the water, and you had this image that only was about 100 kilometers from where I was when I saw them. And, that's their hunting ground. They sweep through there, and, the seals you see, you just think, crikey, you are taking your life in your hands swimming around this water. You need to head south through it. It's safe. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing to see in the wild, and something that will always stay with me, but something I don't want to necessarily repeat.
Wow, what an experience. And I suppose, well, that was one of your more exciting moments. But I mean, on 141 days, were there any sort of moments of trouble, like experiences which you look back on and think, well, I suppose we've just had one with the killer whales, but are there any other moments where you sort of look back and think, God, that was quite testing, that was quite the day?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I mean by that is because to be able to do what I did in 141 days and 400 kilometers, you have to pretty much go headland to headland to cut that distance down. And then up in Scotland, there are so many fingers of land that you have to try and cross. So I call them crossings, and crossings can be anything from 30, 40K. And that can take all day. So your open water, I could be 30 kilometers off land, but you do a huge amount of planning to eradicate any dangers. You'd only do that when you know you've got favorable conditions and all those aspects. The only issue, and this is where knowledge and understanding and ability comes in, up in Scotland and in other parts of the country, you've got things that can change and make weather within 15 minutes. And they are basically mountains and massive concrete cities. So those things can create weather that no one's planned for, and especially up in Scotland, can change within 15 minutes. And I had 2 occasions in Scotland where, you read the weather and you can see the signs and it's changing. And there was one particular time up in Scotland that I actually saw it all changing and started heading out further to sea, because you've got a bit more understanding coverage in open water than being too close to the land. And when I mean close to land, within the first 10, 15K, it can be brutally horrendous because it's on the coast, whereas the weather system can be safer further out. So I spent an hour going further out to sea, and this weather system, this storm that had brewed, literally fell off the mountains in Scotland, hit me. And I spent 6 hours basically paddling for your life, really. But I knew I had the ability to paddle for that sort of time. And the idea was that in those 6 hours, I just hold my position as best I can, because within 6 hours, I could have been another 50 to 100K off out into the Atlantic, the North Atlantic as well. So not a place you'd want to be. So for 6 hours, I just tried the best I can to help hold my position, and pretty much did that, give or take 10 or 15K. And then, of course, once the storm passed, and I could see, and I knew it would, those type of storms, they roll through quickly. You just had to paddle in, and it still had 4 hours to paddle after that to try and get into land. And the beautiful thing about things like this is, once I got in that evening, and I was destroyed, I was mentally and physically broken off that day. I spoke to my land crew and I said, guys, I was pretty close to dying to this day. My land crew are awesome, because they just kind of were carrying on doing what they were doing and sorting something out. And they just looked up, and Will said, cool. What time are you paddling tomorrow? And that, that's what I needed. I didn't need anyone to feel sorry for me, or didn't need anyone for sympathy. I just needed to get on with it. And they were brilliant at making sure that happened.
Yeah, I remember having Mark Beaumont on, and when he was talking about his round the world cycle, he said, if you can just cut out unnecessary things that would sort of put you down. And he said, no one needs to know how I feel. No one needs to ask me how I feel, because I'll always feel crap. But just sort of be on the planning and say, okay, we need to do this. You don't have to say, oh, how do you feel? Because, after cycling or paddleboarding like yourself for 16 hours, you're not going to feel that great. But as soon as someone asks you how you feel and you start telling them, then you start to bring yourself down. Whereas if you take that away from it and just focus on the job in hand, then that's really what you need in that situation. Because even in your mind, you want to sort of say, oh no, I need to be feeling down and this. But if you have someone there who's just like, no, we're not going down that route, you're like, okay, great, I need to now focus on tomorrow.
That's exactly it. I think if you articulate the troubles, they go deeper. So you don't. And, from day one, I never moaned about anything, and I always had a smile on my face. And people would say, you must be feeling so tired after that day. And I'd be like, no, because exactly that. As soon as you start saying, oh yes, it was really tough. And, it starts to bring everybody down. So smile on your face and you crack on with it. Otherwise, don't start it in the first place.
No. Or it's like someone goes, your knees must be killing, and you haven't even thought about your knees. And you're like, oh yeah, maybe they are feeling a bit weak at the moment.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The amount of times people say, oh, your shoulders must be, you're like, no, they're all good. There's only one person I moan to, and he's up there. No one on planet Earth would I moan to.
Exactly. Wow. And so coming into the finishing line in Torquay and seeing all your family there and everyone there to sort of greet you on the beach, what was the feeling like?
I mean, that is the $1 million question, in that, I said earlier how I started off by going right, and I just kept turning right. And that last right hand turn into Torquay, where suddenly the bay opens up and I could see the people on the beach. I mean, I was joined by a couple of hundred paddleboarders, so they were with me, and that really helped to get the strength from them, because I think I would have been on my knees just, the emotion of it. But yeah, seeing the people on the beach, hearing the people on the beach, and then that last 500 meters paddling in on beautiful conditions was something I'll always remember. It'll always be with me. And, I've bottled it up, and I've got bottles of it held that I can just open up in the years to come, for sure.
Wow. And of course, I mean, this was only a couple of weeks ago, and it must have been quite a whirlwind sort of time for you the last couple of weeks, as you say, speaking to people like myself. And I mean, how's the sort of feeling been? You've gone from 141 days solidly getting up every day to go paddleboarding to suddenly resting.
Yeah, that's it. You have a uniform approach to life when you're paddling, in that you get up, you eat, you paddle, you eat, you sleep, you get up, you eat, you paddle, and so on. And that's incredibly uniform, and you get used to that. After about 6 to 10 weeks, you kind of get used to that. It's your system. And then all of a sudden it stops, and life is chaotic, where there's every day is totally different and there's nothing uniform to it. But I spent a lot of time preparing myself for it on the board. You have I average 10 hours, 15 minutes a day paddling. So you got a lot of time to think about there and put things in the boxes that need to be, sort your life out mentally. And the meditation, some people call it. I don't know if it's meditation, but I know that I had a lot of personal time to think about things. And within the structure of the thought process, because I put a real structure in place, there's a lot of, well, what happens next? So I had a lot of things to happen next that actually now I can do. When you're paddling, you can paddle and that's it. There's nothing else you can do. So it's actually a really exciting time, and I love it. And also cool to just share stories with you and people as well, because I never got to share the stories when I was there. The orca story, for example, I didn't see any other humans other than Will and Harry that I were with for another 10 days, because you just don't see humans up in Scotland there like that. So there's no one to tell. So to share the stories, relives it in your own mind, relives it in your own body, and that helps it as well. Yeah, it really does.
You've done a sort of documentary. So did you sort of keep a video diary of like day to day and, these sort of moments? Because I always find, especially on a long trip like that, it's very easy for it to slowly mold into one thing, and you forget those little moments along the way, whether it's, some old lady inviting you in for a cup of tea in the hills of Scotland, or something like that. Well, you wouldn't have been anywhere near the hills, but did you keep a sort of video diary or a journal or anything?
Yeah, so basically I kept a written journal just to remember those key points, even simply of where we stayed, for example, that night, because after the next day, you've forgotten what happened the day before. So I kept that. Will, being a professional video photographer, was cataloguing everything. I was meticulous with doing that. And it's all those little moments. Really the only issue you've got, I found, was capturing the absolute most exciting moments on the board, because I had a GoPro. GoPros last an hour, so you can't have it on the whole time. So, trust me, when an orca comes up behind you, the last thing you think about doing is, hang on a second, just turn the camera on. It's a really tricky, and I've got some moments, magic moments, but missed a few. That is just the way it is sometimes. But yeah, it's important to have that, and I'm so excited about how Will and others will create the documentary, and how we produce what is paddling. But paddling for paddling's sake, it's a bit boring to watch after a while. It's not really a spectator sport, is it? But paddling within the culture, the communities of this fantastic island, is what it's all about, and the different conditions and the different coastlines and the different people. That's what it's all about. And that hopefully will depict that within and be able to see. I mean, in my mind, I see Great Britain very differently. I see Britain very differently. I see this whole island now in the way that if you visited a small island, you've just got the whole thing in your picture. And I've got that, and I want the video to kind of depict that as best it can.
No, very true. I think those sort of stories, as you say, with paddleboarding, I imagine the story would be more about people and yourself and the sort of message, which is, as I say, a really interesting story to convey. And if Will or Harry, whoever the videographer is, can portray that, yeah, it'll be a fascinating documentary to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's almost, I'm probably belittling video photographers a little here, so I apologize if that comes across like that, but capturing the magic of a beautiful scene, as in the cliffs and the albatrosses and all those sort of things, almost seem easy compared to catching that one moment. Like you say, like the little old lady invites you in for a cup of tea, and what that means, or invite you in for a shower, because showers are like, the pinnacle of
a warm shower.
A warm shower. You go months with a bucket shower at the back of the van. So when someone says, "Do you want to come in for a shower?" You're like, "Yeah." They're capturing those moments. They're the kind of, I think that we've seen that with our social media. People love those moments, to see those moments, and can get a little bit blasé about, oh yeah, it's another beautiful cliff. It's so. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. It's capturing those moments and portraying them within the documentary. It's
so fascinating when you do these trips. It's such little things that mean so much. As you say, like a warm, hot food or a warm shower, which, day to day now you'll probably just take for granted. But in those moments, it's just like absolute gold.
Absolute gold. You've hit it there. Absolute. I mean, the amount of times that, because I express that I love coffee, and I'd paddle in, some beaches I'd actually paddle into to just take a moment, 10 minutes walking around on the beach just revitalizes you to paddle another 6 hours. And someone, would come down on the beach and just sort of hand me a coffee, just say, "We thought you'd want this," just hand, and just like, oh yes, absolute moments. It's, as you say, it's the little things. And I, even now, to go and make a coffee where I can just flick a switch rather than spending 10 minutes setting up the cooker, turn on the gas takes 15 minutes to warm the water, it's the little things.
Wow. Well, Brendon, it has been absolutely incredible listening to your stories, and just what an adventure.
Thank you. Just it's amazing to share it, and I certainly has been a very special time in my life.
Well, there's a part of the show where we ask the guests the same 5 questions each time. With the first question being, what's the one gadget that you always take with you on the paddleboard?
Well, it's got to be the safety equipment, really. That's a bit boring, though, isn't it?
You could go with 2 if you like.
Well, the safety equipment has to be there. And I had lots of different safety equipment where I could just literally press a button and satellite signals would do all that. So, yeah, that's super important. But other than that, I'd probably have to say my Aftershock headphones, just because they keep you company. You can listen to your family, you can listen to friends. Yeah, really important.
And waterproof, I hope.
And totally waterproof. Yeah. And float as well, which has come in handy a couple of times.
I bet. What about your favorite adventure book or travel book?
I would have to go with books that massively helped and that's any of Tristan Gooley's books on how to read water, how to read the weather. The guy is a phenomenal ability to bring together all the experiences around planet Earth into his books, and that How to Read Water and How to Read the Weather are essential books, and he puts that in the adventure format. So yeah, any of Tristan Gooley's books.
Okay, why are adventures important to you?
They release the soul. They take the soul to a very different place, and if you can bring that back then and share it, I think that's a very important thing to do, especially with my work in schools. Lots of children don't understand that they can do these things because they can't see them, and by going in and speaking to them, you enable them to see what the body can do. And our human bodies are amazing things and can be put through such tests. So if I can share, the little bits that I've done, hopefully these people in the future, these kids in the future will smash what I do and better it and go on and create and be better from it.
Yeah, I always think that's the one thing, is that people underestimate what their body is capable of, or even their mind when it's sort of focused in. I mean, it's just, as you say, probably with what you've done or, stuff I've done, it sometimes shocks you what you are actually capable of doing.
Yeah. You just got to, once you do these things, you trust your own ability and you trust actually what you can achieve. And then all of a sudden you're 5 rungs up the ladder further than you ever thought you could get. Yeah,
we had Jamie Ramsey on episode 5, and he sort of said it was like blowing up a balloon. You blow it up and then it sort of deflates, but it's slightly bigger the next time, and it just slowly gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it just inflates more and more.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. It's a good way of putting it. And then also when it's going to pop in a way that no one else does. So I always say that whatever your wildest dreams are, you've got another 20% after that, actually, if you push yourself. And that's still a safe limit before the balloon pops.
Yeah. What about your favorite quote?
Oh, well, I'm a man of faith. So there's lots of Bible passages that keep you going. But a single quote, well, that's a hard one. Anything that adds depth to motivation, really. Anything that adds the ability to hope. I love most things that center around hope. I think hope is a fantastic word and is something that can be used so well to create bigger and better things on the planet.
Very nice. And people listening are always keen to travel and go on these sort of grand adventures. What's the one thing you would recommend for people wanting to get started?
Go local first. It's amazing actually what's just around the corner to prepare you for what's further afield. Within Britain, we've got some of the best, we've got some of the gnarliest, we've got some of the ugliest coastlines, and experience those. And then when you go abroad, because when the difference with being in a different country is you're adding elements, the unknown. And whenever you're on the edge, the least amount of unknown that you can put in there, the better you are, the better that you can actually succeed at what you're trying to do. And the more trips you do abroad, the less unknown things are. But, start local and build those experiences up first. Don't go big too soon. Otherwise you will be coming home too soon.
Very true. And finally, what are you doing now and how can people follow your adventures in the future?
So the next 6 months are a huge 6 months for creating as much funds to make this app happen, this gamified water safety app happen. So please check me out on thelongpaddle.co.uk. The Long Paddle as well can be found on all social media, support. And I often say that, do you know what? To be able to share what we're doing, whether it be on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or share our website with your database of human beings that you love and cherish on your social media is worth more than someone putting in a tenner. And it only takes a few clicks to do that. So if you can share what we're doing, you never know who that then reaches, and those people might be able to help us in a way that we've never dreamt. So yeah, check us out at thelongpaddle.co.uk, social media, and just share the mission of what we're trying to achieve, which is, to reduce drowning in this country and then across the world. Because 340,000 people drown every year on planet Earth. It is off the scale.
Wow. That's a statistic I did not know.
Scarily so.
Well, Brendon, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show today.
You're very welcome. It's fantastic to talk to you. I love talking to people who have a shared understanding and share way of thinking on adventuring. So it's been a pleasure. And
yeah, I can't wait for the documentary and hopefully the app to come out. And as you say, you can go at the longpaddle.com.co.uk
.co.uk
and donate there and God, I can't wait for the next big trip, wherever that might be.
Yeah, there's lots of things planned for next year. Just trying to work it through.
Well, thank you so much.
Absolute God bless. Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate your time.
If you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to the show because we have some incredible guests coming up week after week.